When an older man is dating a younger woman, one of the biggest mistakes he can make, and it happens more often than you'd think, is relying too heavily on money to win her over. Now listen carefully. This isn't to say you can't be generous or that you shouldn't treat her well. That's not the point. The issue is when the entire relationship is built on what you can buy her, where you can take her, or how much you're willing to spend to keep her attention. That's where the danger begins. Because whether we want to admit it or not, money has a strange way of shifting power in a relationship. When a man uses his financial status as his main way of showing love, what he's really doing is sending the message, "This is all I believe I have to offer." And that's a message no woman respects for long. Especially a younger woman who still has options, still has her youth, still knows she can attract attention in multiple ways. She may play along at first. She may accept the gifts, smile through the dinners, go on the trips. But inside, she's making calculations. She's trying to see if there's anything deeper in you than just the card swipe. Because money may open the door, but it can't keep someone there. It doesn't create emotional connection. It doesn't build trust. It doesn't make a woman feel seen or understood. If you never ask her what she's thinking, if you never listen to her dreams, if you never speak to her in a way that touches her soul, you can dress it up with luxury, but the substance will still be missing. And people, especially women, crave substance when it comes to love. What's worse is that when men use money as their strategy, they often begin to feel entitled to affection in return. So now, instead of a relationship, it's a transaction. I did this for you, so you owe me that. That kind of energy is repulsive. You're not building intimacy, you're buying access. And when a woman feels bought, she will never truly feel bonded. You may have her body for a while, but you'll never have her heart. And eventually, you'll see her drifting. Emotionally at first, then physically. And here's another truth that needs to be said to women who only respond to money, the ones who expect you to provide everything but never give back emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. Those women are not interested in you. They're interested in your lifestyle. They don't stay because they're in love. They stay because it's convenient. And if your wallet ever runs dry, or someone else with more to offer steps in, she's gone before you even realize you were being used. But the deeper issue lies in what this approach says about your self-worth. If you feel the only way you can compete is by spending, then you've already given up your most attractive quality, your sense of self. Your wisdom, your presence, your stability, your calm. Those are things no young man can replicate. That's your edge. That's your power. So why would you trade that away for surface level attraction? Why dim your light just to be someone's financial plan? If you're going to date a younger woman, let her see the fullness of who you are. Let her feel your intelligence, your life experience, your depth. Be generous, yes, but not just with money. Be generous with your time, your words, your understanding. That's what creates real connection. That's what makes a woman feel chosen, not bought. Because if all she ever sees is your wallet, one day she's going to look for the man behind it. And if she doesn't find one, she'll leave without ever saying goodbye. Another silent mistake older men often make when dating younger women is assuming they always know better. There's this subtle way some men speak to younger women, not as equals, not as partners, but as students. It might not even be intentional. It could come from years of experience, from having seen more of life, from simply wanting to protect or guide. But the moment you start talking at her instead of to her, you've created a wall instead of a bridge. Many older men fall into this pattern without realizing it. You correct her every thought, every opinion, every idea. She shares something she's passionate about, and you instantly interrupt with, "That's not how the world works," or "You'll understand when you're older." And just like that, she begins to shut down. She starts to feel like her voice doesn't matter, like she's not being heard, only being taught. And no woman, especially not a younger one who's still learning to stand confidently in her own skin, wants to feel like she's always being corrected. Respect is not about age, it's about presence. It's about how you make the other person feel when they speak. If every conversation becomes a debate, if she walks away feeling smaller instead of empowered, she'll start to question if she can truly be herself around you. And once that doubt creeps in, it slowly erodes the connection you're trying to build. Now, I get it. You've lived through things she hasn't. You've seen the consequences of bad decisions. You've learned lessons the hard way, and you want to spare her from pain. But sometimes the best thing you can do is listen, not lecture. Let her make her own conclusions. Let her feel safe enough to express herself without worrying that she's going to be corrected every 5 minutes. When she tells you her dreams, don't immediately point out the flaws. When she tells you about her plans, don't dismiss them because they sound naive to you. Remember, she's not looking for a teacher. She's looking for a man who sees her, believes in her, and respects her even when she's still figuring things out. And here's where it gets even more subtle. It's not just about what you say, it's how you say it. A patronizing tone, a smirk, a sarcastic chuckle when she's speaking her truth. All of that chips away at her trust in you. Young women are hypersensitive to being belittled. They've grown up in a world that often questions their intelligence, their decisions, their capacity to lead. When they come to you, they're hoping you'll be different. They're hoping you'll be a place of rest, not more noise. What you need to realize is that emotional maturity isn't shown through how much you know. It's shown through how you make someone else feel valued. You can have all the wisdom in the world, but if your delivery makes her feel like she's constantly under review, she will eventually pull back. Not because she doesn't care, but because she doesn't feel safe. You don't have to agree with everything she says. You don't have to pretend she's always right. But if you truly respect her, you'll let her speak without interruption. You'll allow space for her thoughts to grow. You'll uplift, not overpower. And in doing that, you won't just win her attention. You'll win her trust. Because when a woman feels heard, she opens. When she feels judged, she leaves. One of the traps older men fall into when dating younger women is trying too hard to appear younger themselves. It might start innocently. Maybe you update your wardrobe, change your haircut, download a few trending apps, or start using slang that clearly doesn't belong in your vocabulary. You want to feel youthful, connected, vibrant again. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to look your best or stay mentally active. But when your entire identity starts bending to fit into her world, you lose the very thing that made you attractive in the first place, your maturity. See, what draws many younger women to older men is not that they expect you to be a replica of their generation. It's that you're not. It's your calm when others are chaotic. It's your depth in conversations that usually stay shallow. It's your ability to stand firm in who you are without seeking validation from likes, followers, or trends. That's your edge. That's what sets you apart. So when you abandon that in an effort to keep up with her youth, what you're actually doing is dimming your essence to chase a reflection that was never meant for you. And make no mistake, she can tell. She may not say it out loud, but she sees when you're stretching too far to impress her friends. She hears it when you try to use language that feels forced, or when you jump on the latest internet trend that doesn't align with who you truly are. It might make her laugh, but not in the way you're hoping. There's a fine line between being adaptable and being inauthentic. And once she starts sensing that you're pretending, the respect slowly fades. When a man is trying to reclaim his youth through a woman, it creates an imbalance. Because now, instead of being the grounded, self-assured partner she was drawn to, you're chasing validation through her energy. And she starts to feel more like a mirror than a companion, something you're using to reflect back what you've lost, rather than someone you're genuinely connecting with. That's a heavy burden for any woman to carry, and even heavier when she's still figuring out her own path. And let's be honest, trying to act young doesn't actually make you younger. It just makes you look uncertain. Real attraction, the kind that lasts, comes from self-awareness. It comes from knowing who you are, standing in it confidently, and allowing her to be drawn into your world without feeling like you have to become someone else. She doesn't need you to be her age. She needs you to be secure in yours. What you don't realize is that your life experience, your emotional intelligence, your clarity, that's the real magnet. The way you handle challenges, the way you speak with intention, the way you remain calm when everything else feels rushed. Those are the things that give her something different, something valuable. That's what makes you irreplaceable. So the next time you feel tempted to compete with her age or chase a version of yourself that no longer exists, pause. Ask yourself why you're doing it. If it's coming from insecurity, it won't ever be enough. But if you show up as the man who has evolved, who's comfortable in his skin, who can hold space for her without losing himself, that's when she truly sees you. And that's when you stop being an option and start being the standard. A mistake many older men make when they're with younger women is trying to fast forward the relationship. You meet her, you feel alive again, you start thinking about the future, and suddenly you want to lock everything down. You want exclusivity. You want clarity. You want her to behave like she's already your wife. And she's only been with you for a few weeks. It comes from a place of desire, from wanting to protect what you've found, but often it turns into pressure. And the truth is, pressure destroys what time could have built beautifully. What makes it even more complicated is when this need for control starts showing up in subtle ways. You begin policing how she dresses. You ask her to change her social media presence. You question the kind of friends she keeps, the places she goes, the time she comes home. You convince yourself you're just setting standards. But from her point of view, you're slowly taking away her freedom. You're not guiding, you're dictating. And when a woman feels controlled, especially one who's still discovering who she is, she starts to rebel. Not necessarily in loud, dramatic ways. Sometimes it's quiet. She starts giving you shorter answers. She starts hiding things. She starts creating space between you without saying why. Because she doesn't feel safe, she feels watched. Here's what you need to understand. A younger woman is still building her identity. She's still exploring the world, figuring out her rhythm, her pace, her boundaries. When you step in and try to mold her too quickly into your vision of a partner, she doesn't feel protected. She feels erased. She starts to wonder if she's loved for who she really is or who you want her to be. And once that doubt creeps in, love starts to rot from the inside out. It's easy to mistake control for care. You think, I'm just looking out for her, or I know better. But relationships aren't meant to be led by fear or ego. They're meant to breathe. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is give her room to grow, to make mistakes, to learn from her choices without being shamed or scolded. That's what maturity looks like. That's what leadership in love really means. Not tightening your grip, but trusting her enough to be herself. even when it doesn't look like what you would have done at her age. Another thing that's important to mention is this: if she senses that you're only rushing because you're afraid of losing her, she starts to see insecurity where she once saw strength. And once a man begins operating out of fear, the power dynamic shifts. You become needy, you become reactive. And suddenly, the stability she admired in you begins to look fragile. If she feels like she's responsible for keeping your self-esteem intact, that's not love, that's a burden. And eventually, she will walk away from it. So instead of trying to speed up what's meant to unfold naturally, focus on building trust. Let her know she's free and yet still chosen. Let her know she's accepted as she is, not as you expect her to be. That's the kind of emotional safety that makes a woman stay, even when the world tells her she could have more. Because what she really wants isn't just a man who claims her. It's a man who doesn't need to control her to feel secure in himself. Something many older men do, without even realizing it, is use their emotional wounds to draw sympathy from younger women. It often starts subtly. A story from a past relationship, a painful memory, a time they were betrayed or taken for granted. At first, it feels honest. It feels like vulnerability. And yes, vulnerability is powerful. But when it becomes a pattern, when every conversation circles back to how badly you've been hurt, how misunderstood you were, how difficult your life has been, it shifts. It stops being connection and starts becoming emotional manipulation. You might not see it that way. You might feel like you're just being open. But when you begin leaning on her for emotional comfort, every time you bring up your past, she's not connecting, she's carrying. She's not loving you. She's nursing your pain. And that's not what she signed up for. She came into this relationship looking for stability, for strength, for the calm that an older man is supposed to bring. But instead, she finds herself constantly having to reassure, to tiptoe, to soothe wounds she never created. And here's where it becomes even more complicated. When you've had a rough history with women and you let that bitterness spill into your current relationship, it taints everything. You start saying things like, "All women leave eventually," or "This is why I don't trust easily." At first, she'll try to prove you wrong. She'll be extra patient, extra kind. She'll try to show you she's not like the rest. But the more she tries and the less she's trusted, the more she begins to feel like she's being punished for someone else's mistakes. And nothing kills love faster than being treated like the villain in someone else's story. You might think you're just protecting yourself, putting up walls so you don't get hurt again. But when you use your pain to gain sympathy, you don't realize you're slowly pulling her into a role she was never meant to play. She becomes your therapist, your healer, your emotional crutch. And that imbalance, it turns the relationship into a one-way street. She gives, you take. She comforts, you complain. She shows up, and you keep her guessing if she'll ever be enough to fix the damage. But the truth is, no woman, no matter how loving, how patient, how emotionally mature, can fix a man who hasn't healed himself. She can support, she can encourage, but she cannot carry the full weight of your past. And if you expect her to, she will eventually burn out, because she didn't come into your life to fill the cracks. She came to build something real, something present, something now. There's nothing wrong with having a past. We all do. But you have to ask yourself, am I sharing this because I want her to understand me, or because I want her to save me? That distinction